I'm Jilliana Ranicar-Breese, and I'm a memorist. I write vignettes and memoir from my own life and from the lives of other people who cross my path. And I'm going to sit down. This one is entitled Sex for One. Not what you think.
Never is.
Right. People often ask me what was one of my most interesting retrograph encounters or jobs during the 20 years that I ran the photo library that I created out of my archive. There are several wacky stories, and the following is one of them. The phone rang one evening out of hours, and a loud, brash female voice asked from down under if that was retrograph. Yes, was my reply, allowing for the fact that there was a time difference and that I'd never received a phone call from the land of Oz. How much would you charge for one of your ladies hanging on a bedroom wall, was the tentative inquiry. Unaware that my images of sepia Parisian ladies of the night had reached Australia, I asked what kind of company wanted my images for reproduction as prints. The caller told me to hang on for a moment and screamed across the office, "What kind of company are we?" The answer came back in a word, "A brothel." I was fascinated to know more. I was thus proudly informed that Madame of the Bordello was Mary Ann Kenworthy, and she would be flying to London to receive her golden flying penis trophy at the Erotic Awards, an event organised within the infamous annual Sex Maniacs Ball. This international event was first conceived by Tuppy Owens, the pioneer campaigner and sexual libertine in the 70s. An appointment was arranged on the Friday before the day of the ball. It was summertime in London, a rare occurrence. I researched Langtrees on the net after I had received an email that Mary Ann wanted to see my entire collection of the ladies of the night. I had collected these attractive glimpse of stocking with something shocking sepia French postcards when I lived in Paris. I owned about 200 of them, buying these visuals for their underwear, nightwear and topless, but never bottomless, photographs. The ladies almost became friends, as some I recognized immediately as if to say bonsoir. Eventually they were used on book covers for out-of-print erotic books, and finally 30 of them, carefully chosen by me, beautifully reproduced in a print book in the late 80s. I believe the print run was 50,000. But where are these prints today, I asked myself. The ladies from the roaring 20s, long gone to heaven or hell. I couldn't wait to meet Madame, having convinced myself that she must be one of the voluptuous ladies on the Langtrees website. So I was amazed when a healthy-looking, smiling, with bright white teeth Jane Fonda look-alike arrived on my doorstep, punctually with Lord Trev, her blotchy red-nosed minder. She was wearing a short white skirt with a simple white shirt and white pumps, no jewellery or a vestige of makeup. Madame studied my entire erotica collection and then changed the subject. It became obvious that it was almost a social call. Lord Trev sat looking bored at the presentation, dying for some booze. Finally, he couldn't stand it any longer and went off down Kensington Park Road in search of a drink. He'd seen it all before. He was in charge of the girls. Madame seemed to be quite maternal and would advise her flock when they had female issues. I asked Madame how she became a working girl all those years ago. She originally came from New Zealand. It was unclear how or why she got to Australia, and especially the old gold mining town of Kalgoorlie, but she was happy to talk about how she got into the sex industry. Madame told me she was on benefit and was struggling to make ends meet as an unmarried mother. On On her way to collect her meagre allowance, she passed a Thai massage parlour, and on her way back dropped in to see if any jobs were going. That was the start, and she never looked back. No doubt she got her training and had the aptitude for further services on offer. How she met the brothel owner of the rundown bordello on Hay Street she did not say, but inspired by the actress and courtesan Lily Langtry, King Edward VII's mistress, she bought the business from the outgoing madam and the goodwill that went with it. She quickly set to work, and the rest is history. I had already looked up on the website and knew there was a boxing ring boudoir and a circular large bed in another. Each boudoir had a special name. She described her girls to me and even had a Scottish grandmother on her books, wearing a red tartan miniskirt, for those who liked an older woman. She went on to explain she had opened a museum too, and charged the curious public an entrance fee to learn about how the gold miners, working in the mines in the 19th century, imported in French prostitutes as they were considered to be the best lay. After all, the miners who lived in tents needed a little relaxation after their daily hard work. Thus, prostitution in Kalgoorlie had always been legal. Mary Ann told me that the next night she was going to the famous Sex Maniacs Ball and had been nominated for a trophy for her role in the sex industry. She would be awarded a golden flying penis in a ceremony like the Hollywood Oscars. The annual ball had been devised by the infamous libertine Tuppy Owens in 1986, alongside the Sex Maniac's Diary and the Little Red Love Book, which had begun in 1972. I recall buying one of these diaries, not for the Partou's addresses in Paris, but because I was a dealer in optical illusions and optical toys back in the 70s and 80s, and the pages, if you flicked them quickly like a flick book, showed a silhouette of a couple in action. However, without my permission, my Portobello Road postal address was given as a vintage collectibles erotica dealer due to my collection of the ladies of the night. I only found out because a sex maniac wrote me a letter telling me what he wanted to do to me in no uncertain terms. Mary Ann told me about her favourite book, which she always travelled with, entitled Sex for One. Would I like to see it? Yes, I enthused. With that, she agreed to come back on her own the following morning to show me her treasure. I had to think about her offer because it meant I would be losing a couple of hours of business at Portobello on my stand. But then you don't meet a sex maniac brothel owner every day, so I finally agreed. Saturday dawned and Madame arrived at 8 o'clock, bright and bushy-tailed as agreed, armed with her treasured sex Bible. Just as she was about to enlighten me, my husband Martin, not getting his daily coffee fix in bed, as I was otherwise engaged, popped his head around the door, minus his glasses, to say hello. Mary Ann, with the page open on diagrams of vaginas in all shapes and sizes, shouted out in a brash Aussie drawl, "Which one is Jilliana's?" Out of his depth, Martin mumbled he didn't know, and beat a hasty retreat to the kitchen. We giggled like schoolgirls. Well, British men are not so sexually curious, are they? Time to go. Portobello and business for me, and a golden flying penis for her. We parted company with an embrace, and her promise to post me a corporate brochure, which she had brought with her but left in her hotel. She would be leaving on Monday back to the land of Oz. Our paths were never to cross again. On Tuesday, true to her word, I received a large envelope. Inside was a CD of a tour around the bedrooms, a corporate brochure with a glamorous studio photo of her, à la Fonda, a vulgar large square fridge magnet, and a red baseball cap by the company Get Ahead. with 2 numbers in black on the cap. Not 69, but I was suspicious of the numerical meaning. I wrote to say thank you and asked about the number. Yes, I was correct. It was the macho desired member number. I never wore it, despite looking good in red and black. I didn't want those persons unknown in the know to know. It takes one to know one. Epilogue number 1. Some years later, my husband and I sat at the captain's table on the high seas, heading towards Vietnam, when we were split up and I was placed next to an older Australian redneck, while his wife was way down the table next to Martin. Oh God, thought I, this is going to be a dull conversation without a common interest point. How wrong I was. The usual opening. Having never been to the land of Oz, I politely asked which city he was from. Well, you guessed it, Kalgoorlie. I gasped, casually saying, I know a woman there called Mary Ann. So did he. In fact, he hollered down the table to his wife, I guess who she knows. Are you a client? I gravely inquired. No. He explained he was the main agent for Ford in Australia before his retirement and knew the original Madame. Each of her girls, as a perk for good work, was given a red Ford sports car, and Mr. Redneck was the supplier and a personal friend of Madame's, although I didn't dare ask how personal. Epilogue number 2. About 4 years ago, I was at the Woman Festival in the medieval Spanish city of Cáceres. I was at a local bistro when in walked a well-heeled couple who sat the other end of the restaurant. However, they couldn't read Spanish and had difficulty ordering. Jilliana to the rescue. The attractive woman was from Sweden and her companion, you guessed it, from Kalgoorlie. My cue to mention Madame, who this man had interviewed because she'd made the headlines. Madame had gone political, like Cynthia Payne in the UK, and the police had closed down her Sydney brothel. She was protecting women's legal rights and her working girls. Apparently, she had had to turn the Kalgoorlie brothel into an upmarket guest house to buck the system and stay within the law. Still at the helm 15 years later, or so, I checked her out on YouTube and watched her on video promoting her now not so new business, but we know what goes on behind closed doors, the oldest profession in the world. Number 3, epilogue. I was to meet Tuppy Owens at an educational sex fair conference in Brighton about 3 years ago. We had our photo taken together and promised to keep in touch. I even met a British archaeologist travelling through Antalya, based in Istanbul, who went to university with Tuppy and photographed she photographed his wedding. Synchronicity yet again. And that's it, folks.